Yeah, don't.
Hi, this is Alia with the Help Yourself podcast, and today I have Ronan. I'll let you introduce yourself, Ronan, but Ronan is a chiropractor, and this is one of the amazing skill sets that we have in our country to really help us stay well, because I think what we're realising now with this crisis is the people who are most vulnerable are the ones who have compromised immune systems. So we're all about, well, maintaining and regaining health. Ronan, thank you so much for your time. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah, I think I'll start off. I'm Dr. Ronan Murray. I'm from Australia, over here in Scotland, working in Glasgow Chiropractic Paisley, which I currently own and operate there as the principal chiropractor. So we've been over here for just over 3 years now, and worked a bit here and obviously back in Australia as well. So it's been a different change, but the thing that doesn't change is the human body. So I'll start with, as chiropractors, what we do. And that's essentially, we work with the nervous system. Alrighty, your nervous system is the master control, and that is including taking in the brain, the spinal cord, and then all the nerves that come with it. So we know that everything in your body is what we call subservient, so works for the brain and the nervous system. So it takes into consideration wherever you feel pain, whatever your posture is, your movements, your breathing, your heart rate, digestion, sleep patterns, moods, energy, even the immune system, which is something we're talking about at the moment.
Yes.
So all these things cannot work in your body until the brain says so. And so it is about trying to maintain that healthy correlation and correction between what goes on up in the brain and what happens in the body. So we connect the brain with the body more and try to maintain this innate intelligence that we all have. So that's a little bit about what's going on.
That's actually brilliant. I wouldn't have known to explain it like that. And I think, there's Heal Scotland has a few missions. One is to actually take these words that people probably have only heard, and so that they have a full understanding of what it is you actually do, and then why they would come to see you. So can you, well, first of all, I'm quite interested in what did you see in Australia that would be different from Paisley? Could you answer that first? Where in Australia were you? Whereabouts in Australia did you practice?
I was in Sydney.
Sydney,
Yeah. It's one of these things, I mean, there's not a whole lot different. I think in Australia, obviously the lifestyle lends itself to a bit more of an active lifestyle in a way. The political landscape as well, in terms of the healthcare systems, allows chiropractic to be a little bit more accepted. So over here, you'll find your NHS services don't recommend chiropractic, not because they can't, just purely because it's not on the NHS, that they don't really have a huge understanding, from my experience anyway, of chiropractic and what goes on. So in Australia...
I was just going to say, that's really interesting. So in Australia, it's more integrated.
Oh, big time, big time. Chiropractors work. So through our healthcare system, people are allowed to get 5 free treatments with a chiropractor through the healthcare system.
Wow.
So it'd be effectively going to your GP and then them recommending chiropractic and you coming to us to get 5 free treatments, which isn't the case, unfortunately, over here. So that's a little bit different. So, yeah.
Do you think that'll change? Is there any likelihood, or there still seems to be this ludicrous competition between, well, let's call it complementary. We know it's much, much more than that, and the allopathic. And I know that, it's changing for sure. But actually, people like you who have trained and have this brilliant holistic overview of the human rather than just the body. Can you see that a time in the very near future, please, that it could be integrated?
I certainly do, and I certainly hold out belief that it will, but it's not going to come from them. It has to, and this is what I love about what you're doing here, is that it is going to have to come from us and us as chiropractors and stuff. We have to be willing enough to that idea of competition is and that that rivalry in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of it comes from actually being at loggerheads with each other, but more of a misunderstanding. And the doctors are not going to come to us asking, what is it that you do? They're not going to come to me and say, I'm always interested in chiropractic. What do they do? It has to be about us going to them saying, hey, this is what we do. This is what we know we can help with. And putting it back on them, because if we're living in a world where healthcare is a priority and that we need to look after each other, then egos have to be put aside. And we have to look and say, there is no reason why we can't suggest safe alternative medicine and doing different things. And I'm all about these things. Our practice, we work alongside with massage therapists who are trained in things like Reiki. We've got Mike Daly we know of, and he's done a lot of stuff with bioresonance. And as a chiropractor, I see that it's almost helped me to question, where is it in the hierarchy of the body and how healthy we can make people? Where do we fit, and where do all these other people fit as well? So it's really interesting in that point to see that.
Absolutely. And my son and I used to have a gym in Glasgow, and we had and it was called Heaven Health Boutique, and we had a thing called Heaven Hands and Minds, which was 6 practitioners, 3 that did talk therapies and 3 that did hands-on. And we would give people a consultation with all 6 of us. We'd all look at it and all put our suggestions in and create a kind of very rounded healing package, because sometimes I know, the way I see it, there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. And sometimes you can address your nutrition and that will give you enough life force to feel better. Sometimes you can get Reiki because you just don't want to talk, and that gives you enough life force to feel a little bit better. It's taking these straws off, and every single healing modality is valuable. But what happens is we're so entrenched in that I rock up, you give me something and I get better, rather than realizing we have to participate. I think the one thing that this pandemic is going to do for us is, you're only vulnerable if you're sick. And I know that there's people that, getting very sick who are healthy and well. But in general, the mass deaths are people who are vulnerable. So if we, as a movement, can actually increase people's life force and vitality and understanding of true health, then another pandemic, which would seem to me to be inevitable, will not be the problem, because we'll be strong enough to survive it. So that's how I see it in terms of the straw that breaks the camel's back. And obviously, from my perspective, one of the big straws is the emotional overload and the traumas from childhood as well. So let's talk about I think the kind of common thing is, if you do your back, go to the chiropractor. But I understand you're way, way more than that. But who would you say as your main audience? What are they coming with? Are they coming with the same types of complaints?
Yeah, you certainly see the same types of complaint. I'd say there's probably 2 parts to it in a sense that the people that are coming in, the common theme with everyone that walks through our door is, as you say, a stress overload. And it's not until we sit it down and explain how the physical, chemical, emotional stress comes into it that they look at it and they go, it's actually not physical stress that's the problem. It's emotional stress. It's a huge thing, because it affects us in a way that we don't understand yet, and we can't really fully come around to it. We know that there's a difference, I always say to patients, between the chilling out and the de-stressing side of things. Okay, people walk in the door and they say, well, I think we all have this problem where, and this is something with the crisis going on. I think the second part of this is that when we're talking about this health crisis that the world's in right now, we've got to take ownership ourselves. And I think for a lot of it, we've sort of missed the message. There's been a fear put out there saying, you got to distance yourselves, you got to stay away, we can't do this, you can't do that. And I always think, yes, that's important, and I think what the government's doing is fine, but everything is based around the idea of, how do we stop it from getting into us? Yeah. The next part of that question, and the next part of this, is, how do we stop it from getting to us at the end of the time? Because I think it's one of those things where, well, a virus hasn't changed. For the human body, from the dawn of man to long into the future, the human body deals with viruses, with bacteria, the same way that it's always done. That has not changed. And so this is for us as a community, for us as a population, this feels like something new. But for the human body, this is everyday business. And so what we have to remember is that a virus needs a host and it needs an environment in which it can grow in.
Yeah.
And so this is where we're coming to this stress factor side of things, where we're always talking about the immunocompromised. With the immunocompromised, they need to stay away. They need to look after themselves and be away from everyone so they can't get it. I'd say the question is, well, what can we do to help the immunocompromised? What can we actually do, and what can they be doing that's actually going to make them less immunocompromised?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's what the Heal Scotland movement is about. You know, if we could take the weight, I mean, let's face it, the NHS was overburdened before this happened. So if we can take the weight of the system, if we agree that 80% and maybe more of our dis-ease is lifestyle choices, but not just lifestyle choices. We've poisoned the food, we've poisoned the water, we've poisoned the air, we're living inside, we're living against nature. All of that has to be addressed, I believe, for us to be vital and happy and creative and completely free from stress. But we still have to, that responsibility comes to us, because we can't just keep rocking up and expecting somebody else to fix us. It's clear now that that is not possible.
Yeah, I think that is so true. And this is something that I'll sit with each one of the patients to help explain that is I say to everyone, if you were to write down 10 stresses, whether they're physical, chemical, or emotional right now, which may be causing you or hindering your health. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone could do it. You could sit there, we could all sit there right now and you could write out 10, you could write out 20. At the moment, we could probably write out 50 if we wanted. And that's the easy thing to do. The hardest part to this, and where everyone gets stumped, is I say, all right, well, write out 10 solutions. If you've got 10 stresses, then you should have 10 solutions.
Yes.
And we all hate looking at the problem and thinking, what can I do to help it? There's this idea of the victim mentality that goes on, isn't it? In that we sit there and we go, well, I don't want to think about what I can do. I want something else to do it for me. If it's a pill, I want to take a pill. If it's a surgery, I want to go down the surgery route. The irony of the world right now is that the more likely something is to kill you, the more we want it. I mean, people come in and they go, I went to the doctor, I got given cocodamol, but it didn't help. So I went for tramadol and that didn't help. So I went for amitriptyline, and they just keep going all the way up and up. And then the doctor goes, I've got nothing left to give you. And they're going, come on. And the doctor's saying each time, you have to be careful when you take this because it's more likely to kill you. And they're saying, but if it makes me better, I'll take it. The irony of that and the juxtaposition behind that is just, it's scary for some people that that's how they're looking and living. And I think we're seeing now, especially in my clinic, we see a lot of people come in and the first thing I ask is, are you taking medication? And the first response is, yeah, but I don't want to be on it. I don't think it's doing anything for me. And so I think that's when we start going, well, is your body deficient in cocodamol right now, which is why you're feeling pain? And they go, oh, I don't know. I say, well, answer the question, because if you don't know right now, then why are you doing it? And most often than not, they'll be like, it's not.
It's a really brilliant way to phrase it. You know, and what I've got a client right now who's their daughter's been in a mental hospital. I don't know what the politically correct name is, since last September. And exactly that, it's try this drug for 6 weeks and try this. And literally since she went in there, she's got worse and worse and worse. And when they ask, you know, what about this? What about this? What about acupuncture? What, you know, they just get told no. She's not having any daylight, and it's like, oh, no. I can't believe we're in 2020 and we're still not understanding the human psyche. You know, it really is. It's scary. We think we've come so far and we're capable of such incredible things. And you know, I met Tullio Simoncini. Do you know his name?
I've heard the name before. I'm not too familiar with him.
He's an Italian oncologist who basically says, you know, he's been healing people with bicarbonate of soda. And I heard him speak, and I won't go into it because I know people it's a very emotive subject, this, and people get upset and they can get scared if you say too much. But I said to him, you need to come to the UK. We've, you know, particularly in Scotland, we've got such a terribly poor health picture, high cancer rates, and he said, the UK is a closed shop. It is owned by Big Pharma. And I was like, whoa, what? And again, it's just this ego thing and not wanting to be wrong, wanting to be right. And we put the solutions, leave it with us. And it's like, guys, until we wake up, and I'm not saying that some of these treatments may not be applicable in some cases, some of the times. That's up for debate. But what I'm saying is that the idea that we can't participate in our healing just seems more and more ludicrous to me as the weeks and months go on. So let's talk about, so would you say people are, when they come to you, are thinking on the physical level?
Yeah, so it's something that we see. So your big ones there are the big four that we talk about. So back pain, neck pain, headaches, and musculoskeletal stress. So body pain in a way. Now they're the big four because we talk about those because in the top 10 chronic mortality disabilities, those four sit up there. So that's a huge bit of the population. On our Instagram, we'll talk about that later, but our Instagram, we've put up some snapshots of how much it actually costs the UK to have people in back pain and things like this. But it is something that we see a lot of. But we always see with that sleep problems, concentration problems. We see energy is a massive one. Energy problems are a massive thing at the moment, and that's a huge one in terms of the chemical and emotional and physical stress is a huge one. Energy. So there's some of the big four that we see. Outside of that, a lot of people coming in now for the posture. Posture is becoming that trendy thing at the moment, I guess. A lot of people come in. I think every other day I get asked about these back braces and postural braces and things like that. So posture is becoming a very big concern for a lot of people. So let's say they're the ones that we really see. Obviously, with that comes symptoms. So symptoms like sciatica is a big one, and pain down the arms, pins and needles in the fingers, all these kind of things. So any kind of sensation that's outside of what feels normal, we generally start to see a lot of that. So they're the big four there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because obviously we know the body gives the brain information, but the brain gives the body information, and very often trapped emotions that are held in the body. And, you know, because just because I like to work online and I like to travel, not so much now, I do quite a few hands-on healing therapies, but I tend to focus more on the top ones because of my lifestyle. And certainly now hands-on is not really an issue. So, but what I did realise, when a lot of people just will not talk about their emotional problems, there's a huge resistance to that. Do you find that? Yeah. And then, of course, the idea of having to take action and you know, you might have to visit this and really dig deep, get the bin out, etc. And also the fact that the emotional pain can be trapped in the body as a physical problem. So can you just speak to that about the emotion?
Yeah, huge amounts. I mean, the idea, when we track back on people's histories and we try to get down to the nuts and bolts of what's caused their body to break down, you see a trend, which is when things get stressful in our lives, so soon after that, the body breaks down. And it's when it's sort of when you, right at that moment, school teachers are the best example of this. School teachers will always get sick just when school's about to end or the first week of holidays. They know because their body is getting so worked up with stress, and the moment it gets alleviated a little bit, then the body goes, right, time to deal with it. And then we go into these problems. So that's when we start to see the problems really coming about. And people start to look back and you go, this wasn't they go, oh, I've had back pain before. I've had this happen before. And you start to work back and you realize that every time this was happening, you can tell me there was a stressful situation going on.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't know if you know Kelly Turner, who wrote Radical Remissions. She traveled around the world and, you know, was interviewing people who had been told they were going to die, but who didn't. And they all knew what emotional thing had caused it. They all knew when she asked that question, do you know why you got sick? They all, well, whether they were accurate or not, they all had a pretty good idea of something that had played a big part in their disease. So that, I thought that was really interesting, that we all innately understand that was awful and that really depressed my life force and my immune system and the flow of energy that goes through the body. Yet the emotional release stuff becomes, there's just this huge resistance to it.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a very scary place for people to go. And I really, it does come back to that. We really don't know how to deal with our own emotional stress very well. And I think that idea of, are you de-stressing or are you just chilling out, is massive for a lot of people. And I see a lot of that now.
That's, yeah, I would never have thought to separate these two things, but you're absolutely right. The de-stressing possibly takes a lot more intention and attention than just, you know, the idea, well, you know, a relaxed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like I always tell people, it's like a bin. If you put in rubbish in there all the time, and then maybe you stop putting rubbish in the bin, but you put it around the bin instead. All right, well, chilling out is the idea of putting the rubbish around the bin, but actually taking the bin out and putting it in, taking it out so that you can take it away, that's chilling out. That's actually de-stressing then. Yeah. You're actually getting rid of it.
Yes, that's a great analogy. I use the bin analogy, but I never thought to use that one. So let's get down to the nitty gritty for people that are listening to this, because this is my other kind of big gripe about so many amazing healers and practitioners and doctors, but yet we have to pay for them. So that, I think there's two things there. One, who do you go to? And can you afford to go often enough to get well? I think these are two very real issues. People are overwhelmed, so they just don't go. If they are lucky enough, somebody has said, oh, I had a sore back and I went to see Ronan, and in, you know, one session I felt better, because I know that happens. What would you say, so for example, people are coming for backs and that already. Who's not coming to you for a start that could help? And what type of cost on average is it for a person maybe with a serious health issue or pain?
Yeah, it's always, it is a very tricky one to answer. I mean, we at our clinic, we always look in, and it's fortunate enough that we've got a lot of evidence around chiropractic now, which gives us a basis to be able to look and say, what is it going to work? Now, typically you'll see evidence finds that a 3-month period is where things really start to improve for people's health. Depending on the situation and what the health problem is, we break it down into trial periods. So depending on what the body's coming in with and what's going on with it, we look at it and think, well, we want to give it a sort of trial period of this long. So we just sort of put a 3 to 6 week beginning and say maybe a twice a week sort of schedule. So we try and get them in twice a week there to try and get the body there back to a sort of position where we're feeling great. After that, we go into another sort of 6-week period where we drop the schedule down depending on how they've responded in that first period there. So essentially, we have care plans that people can take out. For us at the moment, to see us on an initial, just to walk in the door, it's about 50 quid to come in. After that, it's £30 for an adjustment each. We have care plans that people can take out. If they do jump on board with chiropractic and they want to get into it, we have always got care plans for them to take out, which reduce the cost depending on how big the package they take out. So it is something that, and this is something that always comes up. Unfortunately, in Scotland, and what we see a lot of is people needing the care, but unfortunately the finance and time is always the biggest problem. We don't live in that ideal world. So it's a tough situation we see, and that's what's heartbreaking for us, is that we do see a lot of people drop out of care purely on the financial side of things. And a lot of people ask these questions, and to that I always say, look, if you want change, speak to the local MPs and politicians, because if you really want change, then you've got to be the ones to voice the concerns. They're not going to change it for you.
Absolutely. And if you've been paying into the system, i.e. your national health contributions, and you're not interested in taking drugs and surgery, you should be able to use your proportion to go where you want. I think that's only fair. And I think that's hopefully something that we'll see in the future. And I think you hit on two really important points there. One, there's the financial angle, but there's also the time angle. And is there anything that a tip you could give us right now that you could do at home? Do you give people homework, exercises to do at home?
Yeah, we do give a lot of homework stuff. At the moment, what's really interesting is obviously we've just gone into lockdown as of this week, which is quite interesting because Australia at the moment have just about to go into lockdown. Only essential businesses, and they've counted chiropractic as an essential, which is awesome to hear. So a lot of chiropractors are answering the call, which it's a personal decision for every chiropractor to make. At the moment, we're following the government guidelines and we've just closed. But for that, it means we've got to adapt, just like everyone else. We've got to adapt here. And so with that comes new challenges and ones that we've got to face. So what we're doing is we're moving to a sort of online sort of presence a little bit more. We've got our YouTube channel there. So Chiropractic Paisley, Glasgow Chiropractic Paisley. Sorry, if you just YouTube that, you'll find us. We're going to be putting out heaps of postural exercise videos that people can do. We're going to be posting about nutrition. So juices for immune boosting. That's a big one, and we'll probably have that up just as of tomorrow. We'll probably get that up for everyone. We're going to be talking other things there in terms of home ergonomics. One of the big things is obviously people are working from home, which means that they're going to have setups that are not probably as good as what they've had at work. They're going to have to make makeshift sort of desk areas.
Yeah. So, well, do you know, it's funny you should say that, because when you said about the sore neck, I've not had a sore neck for years because I do a lot of cold water and I was doing a lot of yoga. And since I came home, but you know, one of the big things I noticed before I even left to travel a couple of years ago was it was sitting at the computer in a stupid way. And that's what I'm doing again. So you've just exactly the home ergonomics.
Yeah, which is going to be huge. Yeah, I think for a lot of us, if we're going to be stuck in here, if we're looking at a month, even longer, we really got to get that right. And there's simple things you can do. One thing I always suggest to people, if you are sitting in your chair right now, and if you're at home and you want to look at trying to make it a little bit easier for you, always think about where your knees are in relation to your pelvis. Okay. So what you want to do is have your feet both planted firmly on the ground there, but you want to make sure your knees are going to be lower than your pelvis. So you want to get yourself up higher. Okay. A good way to do that is if you grab a towel. Unfortunately, I don't have anything around me. But if you grab a towel, all you need to do is just fold it up into a little square there. And I'll be back in 1 second. So you just want to fold it up into a rectangle so you can put it on the back half of your chair. So just where your bum is meeting the back of the chair. So just have it as a slight rectangle. You put that down, that's automatically going to raise your pelvis up just a little higher already, and it's going to put you in a naturally better seated position. That's
a great tip.
Yeah, so that's something, it saves a lot of people. You can do that as well for in your chair. The dining room chairs in your car is a massive one. Cars are set up in such a wrong way that it causes a lot of people. So a lot of taxi drivers we see. So that's probably a good tip there if I'm recommending anything at the moment. The idea is as well, when it comes to the body, the simple principle stands. It's either use it or lose it. And I can't stress that more than right now, is that if you're going to be home, I always say to my patients, you can, a toothbrush is a brush, but you wouldn't use it to brush your hair. It's not designed to do that. You wouldn't use a fork to eat soup. And you wouldn't sit just because your body is able to sit in a couch or a chair for 8 to 9 hours a day doesn't mean it's designed to actually do that. Yeah. We need to keep it moving. We need to keep this brain connected to the body, and the best way to do that is to move it around. So even if you're standing there and you get up from your chair every once in a while and you just do some leaning to each side there, slowly, and I mean this, take it nice and slow, bending forward to try and touch your toes. You're not looking for a stretch on that one. You're just looking to lean forward to get it to move. So all these little things I think is important. So keep that, I think for a lot of people, keep it in mind, especially over these next couple of months.
Right, that's great. So you'll be able to, people can still call you, is that right? And they can look at your YouTube channel. And
will be,
so can you do some kind of online consultation for people?
We're looking into that currently at the moment. What we're going to do is we'll put that out hopefully in the coming weeks there, in the coming days, sorry. It will be a sort of it's a telehealth. So people will be able to go on to use it as a patient. I'll be there as a practitioner. They'll be able to go into a waiting room and just a virtual waiting room, be waiting there for me. And if I'll be online, so when I'm not seeing someone, I can look at them and talk them through things that they can be doing and what we can be doing, and give them advice on everything that's going on in their home. So that's what we'll look at doing. Home ergonomics for people, and looking and saying, right, let's have a look at the desk. Let's see where we can improve things, and can we get the laptop up higher, and can we change things around? So yeah,
because
so
I'm
it's
sure,
certainly a come.
you know, what you're doing, it's a lot of the times it's just tiny adjustments, isn't it? And it makes an enormous difference. And it's a bit like when you're doing EFT, it's just allowing these energies to run, the flow of energy to run without any, with you know, out being inhibited by just a twist or the wrong way. So, and I think that's I'm learning more and more as I get older. It's just simple. We're looking for such complicated solutions for stuff. And in actual fact, it's just because we're mindless most of the day that we're causing ourselves all of these problems. Now, before I forget, what have you got to tell us about the vagus nerve? It's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah. The vagus, this is a big one. We might be going for another hour here.
Well, do you know what? We can actually, let's just give us a quick overview, because we will do another one as this kind of lockdown continues. We can chat again about, you know, how you're developing it, and because I think it's really exciting how creative we are and how solution focused we are. Most of us now, we've got our heads around it and going, right, okay, let's do this. How are we going to do it? How are we going to help? How are we going to actually proactively make this so much better? So we can talk again and do the vagus nerve in more detail, but can you give us an overview?
So the vagus nerve is obviously one of your cranial nerves there. So what I love about all the cranial nerves is coming from the brainstem. So right at the back where your head is connected to the neck, we have the vagus nerve, which runs down and effectively goes down your esophagus into the gut there. And it's just got a whole host of things that go on with it. The polyvagal theory and all that is amazing. So knowing that that gut sense, so knowing when you eat something and you know it's wrong, it's there designed as a way to send you that signal. I mean, this is how they learnt from back in the day, even cavemen. You imagine if you're eating something not knowing what it was, your body needs to tell your brain immediately that there's a problem. And so this is where we get this sensation straight back up to tell us, hey, something's going on here. And obviously it's one of those things that's activated or deactivated depending on how much stress is in the body. And if you're de-stressing, you're going to settle that down. If you're stressing, you're going to send it up. And this is where we get that the butterflies in the stomach and all those kind of feelings. So it's an amazing one. I mean, it's one of those ones where I revisit it all the time, because there's always something more to learn about it. There's something more that they can tell me, like, oh, I completely forgot that it does all this as well. And you're thinking, all right, this is crazy.
Absolutely. It's a kind of unfolding story, isn't it? I mean, as is everything, the heart, the brain, you know, the connection. It is so fascinating. I think it's very exciting times. It's just how we inspire and empower people to understand that they're living in this phenomenal bundle of vibrating intelligence. Way more exciting than we've ever been led to believe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something that I wish people, for them to get, is the idea that this body of yours is absolutely incredible. But it's so incredible that if you don't treat it right, it's not going to do the right things at the end of the day. I mean, we always talk about innate intelligence is our ability to look after ourselves. It's our onboard system. If you cut yourself, you don't think about healing, but the body knows exactly what to do. I mean, and that's really important. If you think about, if you cut yourself, even a paper cut, if your body didn't have innate intelligence, a paper cut would be life or death, because you would just keep bleeding and bleeding. So if you get a paper cut, I mean, your body knows exactly where the problem is. It knows to send coagulant to stop the blood from leaking any further, so it can heal the actual cut, and then it can heal the skin back over. I mean, that is such an incredible system that you learn from the moment you exit the womb to the day you die. That doesn't end for anyone.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like, you know, where and when did we start? I mean, because when you're younger, no matter what happens, you just think you'll get better. But somewhere along the line, we stop thinking that the body would rebalance and heal, and we go into fear, and we quite often interfere with an intelligent process and make things a lot worse. And I think that's the thing about over testing now, is that sometimes that would never have been a problem, but now we're obsessed by looking inside the body. And I think we're making inaccurate guesses sometimes and giving people information that leads to a story that they may, or a road that they may never have gone down before. What would you think?
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying there. I think it's one of these things about the innate intelligence, the healing of the body. I mean, healing factor is always there. I mean, I like to say, if you break your arm, if you're 6 days old and you break your arm, I mean, you would expect that arm to heal. And if you're 6 years old, you would still expect that arm to heal. And if you're 60 or 166, I mean, that arm is going to heal no matter your age. I think if the arm can heal a broken bone, then why can't it heal anything else? Why do we get to a point where we say, all right, you need to be on blood pressure medication because your body doesn't know how to control its blood pressure anymore? I mean, why is that so much harder for us to do than for the body to heal a broken bone? And this is where I think a lot of people sort of start to have to realize and think, actually, if I can do that, why couldn't I be able to do that?
Yeah, I know.
I think, and that's where we've got to nourish it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, people, we're tired, our lives are far too packed with rubbish, and it's jam-packed filled, and we're just not actually, we've not had time to sit back and do some actual, the most amazing gift we've been given, which is free will, to actually think for ourselves and think, you know, that actually makes sense and that actually doesn't make sense. And a huge disempowerment. I don't know if you watched the what's it called, The Pharmacist on Netflix, the story about Oxycontin. It's, I mean, and these people aren't in jail, and, you know, people that have sold marijuana are in jail. I mean, the world is bonkers, and it's time we, the people, need to actually open our eyes and our minds and really start understanding, because it's such an exciting time, I think, potentially, but we need the masses to because there's far more of us can do this,
right.
You know. So yeah, well, listen, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with everything you've got going on. We'll put the links to your YouTube channel and your phone numbers, etc., for people that need help and maybe that just want to ask. If, I mean, would you say somebody was depressed, for example, or was suffering from panic attacks? I know that chiropractor can help. Chiropractic, whatever you call it, what the noun is.
Yeah. Chiropractic, yeah.
Do you think somebody would think about coming to you for that? Do they?
I would say at the moment, I mean, we've got to tread water here and be very filtered in the way we're talking with these things. In this way, I'll put it this way, your brain is key. Nothing happens in your body without your say-so. Like I said before, the brain controls everything going on in the body. And I mean everything. So if there is a way you're feeling, there's something that you're doing, if there's something going on that inside your body, chances are your brain has something to do with it. Now, if there's a disconnect between the brain and the body because of that, and that's what maybe is causing it, then we can help that body in that situation. We don't look at what the problem is. We don't look at where the problem is. We look at the cause.
Absolutely.
So we don't care what So we want to see what the causes are and look at that. And that's where we look at the stresses. So generally, no, we don't get people that are coming in saying, help me with my depression. Nor would I, if someone were to ask me, can you help me with my depression? It's not something I look at. I said, can I help your nervous system? Is the question I'd be asking. Can I help your nervous system? And if you think whatever's going on with you is a problem with your nervous system, then I can help your nervous system. But outside of that, I'm not going to focus on the problems with people. I think that's where you've got to get away from. Yeah.
Beautifully and tactfully put, Ronan. Thank you. Well, it's been absolutely fab to talk to you. I think it's really nice that we can have these conversations, and also that people will have the time to sit and listen and learn. And keep in touch, and good luck with everything. And we'll put the links in, and people can get in touch and follow your tips that are to come.
Yeah, sure will. Sure. Yeah, excellent.
So
All right.
much.
Well, thank you. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Cheers.